Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a weather pattern that's about to break a ton of records across the northern tier of the United States with a winter heat wave on the horizon. In addition to this, we have actually a storm on the west coast of the United States that'll also be shattering its own records with the potential for some record-breaking flooding, in addition to upwards of 60 to 100 inches of snow in the higher elevations of California. Just crazy stuff. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast. But before we get too far into this weather forecast, I just want to remind you to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. It's free to do. It's the red button down below. We do daily weather forecasts. In addition to that, we are about 1,400 subscribers away from 100,000, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. All right, let's hop right into what's happening across the United States right now, and we will begin with the Central Plains, and this is actually where we do have currently a storm ongoing. This actually brought a couple of tornadoes to Texas yesterday. We actually had two confirmed tornadoes off to the north of Abilene, Texas. We were live for that, and this system is now starting to shift a bit further out to the east. We are seeing plenty of rainfall, though, anywhere from the Central Plains back through the Gulf Coast. A few thunderstorms back down right along the Gulf Coast, but no severe weather today. However, there will be the chance for a few tornadoes tomorrow across parts of Florida, so be mindful of that. We will have a detailed breakdown on that later in this forecast, so make sure you stay tuned. And then back over on the west coast of the United States, there is a large storm coming. I will be talking about this as well later in the forecast and with what impacts it's going to bring, because we're going to see a ton of snow out of this, and as well as very heavy rainfall and a rare high risk of excessive rainfall back near Los Angeles. So really crazy stuff overall, and I'll have a detailed breakdown on that here in just a few minutes. Now let's briefly talk about the weather pattern that's occurring across the United States right now and what is to come with the record-breaking weather pattern that could bring very high temperatures to areas in the Midwest for this time of the year, in addition to the storm that's about to impact the west coast. This is what it looks like right now. So we have our subtropical jet stream down here to the south. We have a very dominant ridge in place across the Midwest and the northern plains. That's keeping many areas dry and warm. And we also have this low pressure system right here in the southern plains, and that is sneaking underneath that high pressure system. And that is what's going to bring the showers and storms to the southeast United States over the next 48 hours. Once we go into Monday into Tuesday, that high pressure system is barely going to move. It's going to continue to stick up there in the Midwest, but by the time we get closer to Tuesday into Wednesday, the weather pattern will begin to change. That large storm that's going to impact California, well, the next path it's going to go toward is areas in the northern plains and as well as the Midwest. So once we get closer to Wednesday into Thursday, that'll start to go into areas in the northern plains and the Midwest. It'll bring a little bit of cooler weather, so we'll get away from the potential for record-breaking high temperatures. And then once we go into Friday, Saturday, into Sunday, we'll overall still have a pretty active weather pattern across the northern tier of the United States. And then past next weekend, things become a bit more uncertain. But with that being said, there is a possibility for an Arctic blast somewhere closer to the middle or end of February, and we'll be talking about that here in just about a minute. But I do want to mention that the temperature anomalies across the United States is a really critical tool here that we're going to use to give you an idea of the potential for record-breaking high temperatures in parts of the United States. And this gives you an idea of the difference of temperature from average. So now notice back up near Canada and northern parts of the United States, we have areas 20, 30, and 40 degrees above average for this time of the year. So that is really crazy to begin with. But once we go into Sunday into Monday, that warm weather is going to continue for much of the northern plains, for the Midwest, and parts of Canada. And then once we go through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week, that warm weather is actually going to be ramping up in the Midwest. We're going to have some areas in the Midwest in the 50s and 60s by the time we go into Thursday afternoon, which is just unheard of for the month of February, at least at the beginning of February. That is just really rare. So really crazy stuff overall. And by the way, this warm weather, not really going to go much of anywhere until we get closer to next weekend. So we're going to have about 5, 6, 7 days of that record warm potential weather in the Midwest and the northern plains, and then it will finally leave, and we'll start to see around average to below average temperatures in the central and western parts of the United States. But one key thing that we're looking at right now is back up in Alaska, we have a pocket of Arctic air, and this is actually bringing near record-breaking low temperatures to areas in Canada right now. Some places are like 50 below zero right now up there, and this is going to be something to watch for over the next several days, is how this interacts with the warm air mass that we have currently in Canada. And then once we go closer to the middle of February, will we get any sort of Arctic blast out of Canada? Notice this on the GFS model by, let's just say, February 16th, for example. It shows a large cold air mass. Now, exactly when will we see anything like this and how strong will it be is extremely uncertain, and even this, where it happens, again, is really unknown since we're still talking about 10 to 12 days out. But there is, I think, a higher likelihood that we are going to see some sort of Arctic blast somewhere in the middle or end of this month. I am almost certain that there's going to be something. It's just a matter of when it will happen and how large it is and who will it exactly impact. Those details are all unknown. But what we know for sure right now is that over the next 10 days, it's going to be quite warm across the United States. These are the temperatures going into tomorrow morning. Notice we actually have a little cold blast that came through areas in the Northeast. So we are seeing a little bit of cooler weather for the Midwest and the Northeast. And then once we go into the work week, notice that warm air starts to rise up to the north. This is Tuesday afternoon. The high temperatures will be into the 60s, even in South Dakota. Again, just crazy for this time of the year. And by the time we go into Thursday, these are the high temperatures across the Midwest. Again, just crazy stuff. We're talking 50s, low 60s. Chicago will be near 60 degrees as well. Again, just off the charts for this time of the year. Just not something we see very often in the month of February. And then once we get closer to Friday into Saturday, cold air will start to usher in again, but it's nothing in comparison to what we saw back earlier in January. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next couple of days. And beginning with today, we don't really have a risk of severe weather, but tomorrow we do. So for Suspicious Storm Sunday, we do currently have a slight risk of severe weather in southern Florida near Miami. There's also a marginal threat of severe weather in central and northern Florida. The main concern is damaging winds, but there will be the chance for a few tornadoes. That main concern will be back down in southern Florida, but a couple of tornadoes in central and northern Florida are also possible. Now, in terms of timing, we're going to begin with tomorrow morning. Notice showers and storms off the coast. This is around 8 in the morning, so storms will be moving toward Tampa. By around 10, storms are entering into southern Florida. These storms will have the best chance to produce an isolated tornado. We might see a QLCS tornado, basically meaning a tornado embedded in that line of storms. By lunchtime, storms roll through areas like Port St. Lucie and West Palm Beach. By the afternoon, a couple of cells might develop back up near Gainesville and Daytona Beach. Those ones have the chance to produce an isolated tornado as well. And then all the storms move offshore by sunset tomorrow. And we'll be dealing with a couple more showers as we go into Monday as that low pressure system passes. Now, for the remainder of the United States over the next few days, in addition to the California flooding event, this is what it looks like on the future radar. What we're going to be looking at over in the West Coast is showers and storms going into tonight and tomorrow. This will lead to some record-breaking flooding across parts of California, in addition to upwards of 100 inches of snow. I'll be showing you that more in detail here in a second. By the time we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, that low pressure system moves over the Rocky Mountains. By Thursday, we'll be watching for some showers across areas in the Midwest with the potential for a few thunderstorms in Illinois back through Arkansas. There will be some snow on the north and west side of this trough, but it's not going to be a winter storm. And then once we go into next weekend, things become a bit more uncertain, but it looks to be a bit quiet as we go to the tail end of next week. Now, in terms of what we can expect in terms of flooding, notice there is a high risk of excessive rainfall just west of Los Angeles, even a moderate threat back through San Francisco into Los Angeles. This is obviously the highest potential that we have right now in terms of flooding will be in this area, so be very careful on the roadways tomorrow. In terms of total rainfall accumulation between now and Monday around lunchtime, there could be some areas picking up as much as 10 inches of rainfall, but what we know is that there will be many areas between 2 to 6 inches of rainfall, with some isolated locations, especially near Los Angeles, getting close to 7 to 10 inches of rain. So be very careful out there. That is a lot of rainfall for California. And in terms of snowfall accumulation, many areas in the higher elevations will see anywhere from 20 to 30 inches of snow. Upwards of 100 to 120 inches of snow is not impossible with this sort of event. But again, that will not be happening in Los Angeles. That will be happening back up in the higher elevations in Eastern California. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and like the video.